Well, good morning, everybody. We're back again. This is Jim, and I know it's only been a couple of weeks since we were last on the webinar together. I want to ask you if one, two, or three of you can shoot out a quick chat. Let me know that you, in fact, can hear the webinar as well as you can see the screen. So if you would send a quick chat, let me know that yes, you can hear me. And yeah, okay, good. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Phyllis. Thanks, Mike. All right, so we're good to go. Looks like we've got a bunch of us on there. Thanks, Dale. Loud and clear. We've got 30-some folks having arrived and still more coming in. But it's 11 o'clock and I want to get started. We've got probably a good 55 minutes of material here to cover today. It's the old proverbial 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. And I want to do a little bit of material on what we covered a couple of weeks ago, which was the success triangle, and that's why I've got on the screen the tools and the BAT, which was, if those of you remember, behavior, attitude, and technique, which are the real building blocks and the core foundation of success in any endeavor. So we'll dive into that. Let me go to the kind of the ground rules for today, which is pretty much the same ground rules that we try to live by every time we're on. Mute your line. I've pre-muted everybody coming in. It's an ability that I have that keeps it all fairly stable, so that we're not getting a lot of background noise and disruptions. So keep your line muted if you can. Use the chat as a way to engage. So if you have to or want to have a point, question, comment, as I have on there, number 3, it's okay to disagree. If you've got a disagreement or something that you want to take issue with, use the chat. It's a great function, and you can chat to either me directly or to everybody so everybody sees it. Have some fun, ask questions. If questions arise, do not be shy, throw them out there. Challenge me. I will record. I am recording. And then at the end, we'll wrap up. We'll send I'll send the link out for the lessons learned, which, as by now everybody is pretty familiar with the whole procedure of that, hitting the lesson learned form, filling that out, figuring out how you're going to apply some of the materials to new mill specific projects that you're working on, and then send that thing back. So that's what we're going to do today. We'll wrap it up by 11:50, 11:55 at the latest, and get everybody back to work. So let's look at and talk about and just kind of a review the Sandler selling system. There it is, kind of big, bold, bright. And Sandler had used the submarine analogy because from a kind of a difference, the submarine, it runs silent, it runs deep. And that's what Sandler was trying to imply with that submarine analogy. Your sales process and the way that you engage should be very quiet. It should be very, very powerful, but it should run deep, and it should not be that blustering battleship on the surface that everybody sees coming or that people see coming. What we don't want to do is look salesy, be salesy, come across as that boisterous, blundering, sales individual who is out trying to kind of, destroy the world and make waves. But we want to run solid. We want to run deep. And the other piece of the submarine is the other nice attribute of a submarine. And I don't know whether or not we have any former naval members with us, but submarines are all compartmentalized. It's not just one big open ship interior. And the reason and rationale behind the compartmentalization of the submarine, as with the Sandler sales process, is if there's any kind of hull or hit that submarine takes, you can simply seal off that particular compartment and not lose the entirety of the vessel. So by compartmentalizing your sales call into these 7 steps, and as we all know, there's no such thing as the perfect sales call, the perfect salesperson, and the perfect environment. We're going to take hits, we're going to take shots, and what we want to be able to do is to know where we got hit. So if it's in the decision compartment, if we know that that's where we got hit, we can back it on up into the budget compartment, and we can fix that decision compartment before we move it forward. So the whole idea there is to protect the whole sales call, the project itself, and know where where you might be taking on sprung a leak or taking some kind of a hit. So those are the 7 steps. Bonding and rapport. The purpose of bonding and rapport is to create an environment of trust, comfort, and credibility. That's the whole purpose of bonding and rapport. And by the way, bonding and rapport is not a compartment that we seal off and we forget about it after we do a good job in that particular compartment. That's actually the entire skin of the sales call. Should be wrapped in good, solid rapport and human relation skills and tactics. So bonding and rapport is not something that you do and then forget about. It's you do it, you continue to do it, and you forever grow and establish the relationship. Now, one of the I guess the factors or worries about the bonding and rapport piece that I oftentimes preach and teach about is be careful that we're not doing too much social bonding and the happy kind of current events type of rapport building. The problem with that type of rapport or bonding is we can get taken too far off track and off task. You go down many inadvertent bunny trails when you spend too much time social bonding. Now, I also suggest that the initial meeting and interaction that we have with prospects and potential customers is stick to business bonding first. Social bonding can come later on after you've created some kind of a relationship. After they've bought from us, we sell to prospects, but we become friends with customers, as opposed to how a lot of salespeople do it. Is they become friends with prospects, hoping and praying that at some point in time that friendship will lead to business. And there's inherent problems with that, in that when we start to develop that friendship, that very close kind of rapport building that we have with a prospect, we may be very hesitant to ask tough, gutsy type of questions to someone that we've created a relationship with, hoping that at some point in time that relationship is going to be strong enough they're going to buy from us. So I want to focus business bonding first, social bonding second. That's the objective of that first compartment. Second compartment, upfront contracts, is really setting the stage, setting the engagement, understanding the expectations of what both parties, and that is a bilateral agreement, not a unilateral agreement, but a bilateral agreement as to what's going to take place between that particular customer and New Millennium and yourselves. And that is setting the stage and the table of contents for what you need to do, which is to understand what kind of, and then you go into the qualifying steps, pain, budget, and decision, understand what are the problems, how long have they had them, what have they done about them, give me some examples of them, how do you think that problem is impacting, or what's it costing your organization to have that type of problem. So it's really all about pain. Pain is kind of the driving force behind Sandler. Is if there is no pain, there's very, very likely no real reason why somebody is going to trade you their hard currency to get rid of something that does not exist. So we have to all be kind of heat-seeking missiles, heat-seeking submarines for pain, which is, you know, my analogy for pain is what are the problems, anxieties, irritations, and needs. So PAIN, problems, anxieties, irritations, and needs that particular entity might be experiencing, or might be afraid that they could experience it and be willing to talk to us, the steel doctors, about their pain. So no pain means no good likelihood that we're going to ever do business with these people. And if they have pain, we're going to have to talk to them about, now we call it, or it's called in Sandler, the budget step. And I know that in your guys' world and the environment that you live in, that it is not simply a matter of somebody having, let's say, a $2 million budget to get their deck and to get their joist. But we have to be very, 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 very understanding that in that budget step, we should be calling it the investment step. They have to invest their time and resources, and they may have to divest themselves of a current vendor. So that's where we talk about, you know, about firing the incumbent supplier to them. So that's the step there. It's got to come after pain, because that's only going to be relative to understanding if they have a problem that they're trying to resolve. And then we go into the decision step as we're working our way through the sub in the decision step. And that's understanding their decision-making process. This is the step, this is the compartment that an awful lot of people in sales bypass that step. And you bypass it at your own peril. That's the step where, and you know that I've referred to happy ears in many different situations, but happy ears is when we get that excitement, that emotional involvement, when we find somebody that's got a problem, they're willing and able to fix the problem. They have the kind of the investment, you know, they're spending money, they're spending the right amount of money. They're willing to fire the incumbent, and we get what we call happy ears because we think we got one now. And then we bypass the decision step and understand, you know, when a decision will be made, who else is involved, who else that they're looking at. We don't understand all the intricacies of how another party makes a buying decision. That's the importance of the decision step before we go into step 6, which is the fulfillment step. And that fulfillment step is simply to be able to prove that we at New Millennium can solve their pain. You know, we're the pain solution to them within the constraints that they're under from time, money, and willingness to change, and then that we would present to them in the format by which they make a decision. So your fulfillment step is just proving that New Millennium can do what is needed to be done to help them complete their project and complete it on time within their budgetary constraints that they're under. And then post-sale is making sure that everything in the future is mapped out according to plan, to make sure that after we sell it, that we service it, that we expand the relationship, that we get any kind of notification if any of the problems arise that could typically arise. So those are, and again, I know this is a matter of review and maybe some redundancy. And, you know, as far as redundancy and review, it's all about reinforcing. This stuff should be kind of a visual representation in your mind. So when you're going on a sales call, you ought to be you ought to be pre-call planning and saying, all right, what's my upfront contract going to be? What are some of the questions that I'm going to ask in the paying step? What are the questions I'm going to ask about their investment ability and willingness? What are the steps I need to ask in the decision compartment, the fulfillment presentation? It's all about knowing where I am and where I need to go when I'm going and maneuvering through my sales process. Now, this is the chat time, and this is where it's kind of open. You can chat to everybody or just to me personally with your chat feature. What's been the most useful tool that you've learned from Sandler? What's been, and if you could chat, and I'll give you a minute there to chat, what do you think's been the most useful tool, and where have you been using it? So what tool that you have, let's say, gravitated towards or started to implement? What tool have you learned that's been the most useful, and where have you been utilizing it? Take a second and get me a couple examples and learning points. All right, good, Mike. That's a good one. Not spilling my candy when talking to a customer. Good. And so, let me see if I can. Let me see some more. The upfront contract. Good. Learn to listen more than I talk. Good, Danny. Good, good, good. Good, Jim. Not spilling the candy. All right. Hey, Jim Fowler, I am going to, if I can, see if you've put in your audio pin. I am going to unmute you, Jim Fowler. Can you hear me? Hey, Jim. All right, I guess you can hear me. I don't know if all right, good,
yeah,
good. You're on. All right. Now you said that yours. What was your takeaway? Or was it
not spilling the candy?
Yeah, the spilling of the candy. So what differences have you seen yourself making by kind of gravitating towards that spilling of the candy? What did you do different?
Well, I deal with customers that, do a lot of large warehouses and stuff. And I used to give way too much information or be too antsy to go in there and do anything and everything I could that job was the most important job to me. And I kind of was leading my customers to believe, that was the most important job. And I really wanted that job and all. And here lately, I've been kind of holding back and holding information back to my customers. And it's kind of leading them back to me and getting them to call me, getting information from me versus me giving all the information out, mainly on, some value engineer information that I've been giving them and things.
Okay. Yeah. Now, was it as difficult as you thought it might be to not spill your candy, or was it, let's say, was it easier than you thought, or tougher than you thought to not spill your candy? And as we say, candy,
it's tough. It's tough to withhold information from your customers, and it's tough to do that. It takes takes a little bit of comfort, takes you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. 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 One of the things, as far as comfort zones, one of the things that I frequently stress is you don't have to change who you are or be Mr. Tough Guy or Tough Gal. But what you have to do is you've got to be gutsy, like in just little 5-second increments, and be gutsy enough not to, in that case, in Jim's case there, not spill your candy so quick, not be so anxious to, tell, sell, but be a lot more inquisitive and hold back before you prescribe kind of a solution. And it is, and as Jim said, it's tough to do. It is. I I mean, that's one of the things that many, if not most, salespeople tend to do kind of naturally, because when somebody, I mean, even as kids growing up, we all were rewarded when we had the right answer, and we were, the first one to be able to prove that we knew what we're talking about. We got stars on our paper, we got stars on our forehead, but we were always rewarded for being the smart person. So when we go in, they say, "What would you do here?" It's very tough to not jump in and solve their problem too soon. It's tough to not solve when they ask us to solve their problem, or tell us, "What would you do? How would you do it?" Which is that proverbial spilling candy in the lobby, which is we dump too much too soon without getting any kind of understanding as to what we're going to get in return. The principle of reciprocity, as I've said before, is one of the strongest principles of what motivates people to take action. So we need to have the guts, 5-second kind of incremental guts, to not be willing to just, as I say, show up and throw up. So thanks, Jim. I appreciate that insight. Now, Mike Powell, let me try to unmute you. And you mentioned pain has been finding the pain.
Can you hear me?
Mike? Yep, I got you, buddy. All right. Finding the pain has been a useful tool for you and Sandler. How have you been using it? Maybe you could share with the whole big group. What's your tactic?
Well, I've been around a long time, so I get a lot of, I've used it kind of in third-party stories, because you hear a lot of things from, like, even good customers of things that are going on in the market, and it's a good lead-in to try to find out. People sometimes are afraid to admit that things aren't going as well as they should, and so sometimes a lot of times I use a third-party thing, and then they start agreeing with me, and leads into finding out what their issues are and stuff. And believe it or not, with a lot of customers been around a while, service is their biggest pain. Having somebody there that they can contact and take care of things for them in a timely manner. So that's what I found out.
Okay, very cool. And I like your third party, your third party stories, and third party stories are a great way to uncover pain. And again, back to kind of principles of influence, it is the kind of the social proof principle, or the consensus principle at play there, where people want to know what's affecting other people, what are other people doing. And so when we build those third-party stories into our conversations, it allows people to kind of raise their hand, kind of figuratively raise their hand and say, "Hey, you know what? That's something that we have experienced, or that's something that I know that we've been struggling with." So it's like they join in and say, "Well, it's not just those guys. We get affected by that as well." So people are more inclined to say that's a problem that we're having when they hear that other people have experienced it. So thanks, Mike. I appreciate that's an awesome, hearing about the third party stories and building that in. Let's see if I can find, Gerald, Gerald, you had a good one. You're using the upfront contract, and you said you use it for every conversation with a prospect and or a customer. So let me unmute you. Gerald, if you could share with the group a little bit more about your upfront contract and how you're utilizing it.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Got you, buddy.
Okay. Because I cover a very wide geographic territory, a lot of my sales work is over the phone rather than in person. So whenever I call a customer, the first thing, once I get them on the phone, is I ask them, "Hey, do you have just a minute to talk about the stay-in-place forms on job X?" which lets him know I'm not going to take up any more time than he wants to give me, and that we're going to be on a particular subject. And it just seems to make the conversation flow more easily and make the customer relax if he knows what to expect.
Yeah. Yeah, people are a lot more relaxed if they know what to expect. If they don't know what to expect, they're fearful. And that's just human nature. Human nature is such that, everybody's defensive. Everybody's kind of looking over their shoulder, where it's in that kind of predator-prey mentality. What's going to get me? And I've just got to be cautious of it. So if they know what's coming up, they're a lot more inclined to be truthful and to be honest with us. And that's what we want. I mean, that's what everybody in sales wants, is a honest, truthful conversation with a potential customer, not to be lied to. We have the rights, we have rights as salespeople, the right to be respected, to not to be lied to not to be BS'd, to not to be used. We have the right not to be taken for granted. So that upfront contract is just making sure that both parties are in agreement as to what's going to take place and what's going to happen, and what the objective of the meeting or meetings are going to be. So that's great. Thanks, Gerald. I appreciate it. I'm going to review you. I am going to go one last one. I see that Drew's got a neat one. He's got one that's clear next steps. And Drew, I just unmuted you. If you could chime in and let us know how you're using clear next steps in your sales conversations. What does it sound like?
Well, in the past, I think, Jim, I didn't ever close the next door or open the next door. Clear next step became a very valuable tool for me to, post sell the deal, but also know that I'm going to have the next opportunity and what that opportunity looks like if I didn't get the sale that day. And it's really been valuable for me.
Yeah, you know what? It's an awful lot easier for us to forecast and to have some expectation, because we've set some clear next steps with that particular customer prospect, so that both parties have agreed upon what's going to take place next. So the upfront or the post sale is really an upfront contract at the end of every interaction, and it's like they're bookends. You open up every sales interaction with an upfront contract, and you close every interaction with a post sale or an upfront contract at the end, a back end contract, which is what Drew's referring to there. It's a lot more. It's a lot easier for us to forecast projects and deals if we have clear next steps, and if we've not just speculating what the next step is going to be, but it is a mutually agreed upon next step between us at New Millennium and the customer or the prospective customer. So that's great. I love hearing that, Drew. Thank you very much. That was awesome.
And that's ingredient for us.
I'm sorry. You say that what? Hey,
that's
Drew.
a key ingredient in our building of sales. The key ingredient there is what you said. It's that next clear step in building these relationships with these customers, because they are repeat. I've really learned the clear next step is giving both of us an expectation to the next, the next moment or the next sale opportunity, or or finishing that one or going to the next. I mean, I use it all the time. It's been wonderful.
That's great. Keep using it, Drew. That's worth it right there for you, is to have a very, very, very mutually beneficial next step for both parties, and it kind of raises your credibility and your standard, because you're very defined and deliberate about what's going to happen next, and people appreciate that. People appreciate that. When they're dealing with Drew, or if they're dealing with any one of you, you're very, very defined as to what's going to happen, and people appreciate that. It's a good human relations tactic. So thank you, Drew. I appreciate that. All right, let's go into this. Now, we covered this last, 2 weeks ago, the success triangles or triangles, and kudos. And I want to give a hats off to a handful of you that had completed it. And I know that I sent out that page that asked you to fill out your own success triangles to get your, what we call the batting average, BAT, behavior, attitude, technique, to get your average in your success, in the whole success piece. And it's just, it's like baseball, the higher the average, I'm sure the more that particular player is commanding his worth. And, Bob Stearns, he shot his out. I mean, he was lickety split. Brad, Bob, Drew, Sev, Tom, Shane, Bo. Kudos to you guys. I do appreciate getting those things back. And it looked like you obviously had put some thought into it. And as I said a couple of weeks ago, and I'll repeat this, is that there is nobody that's batting 1,000. There's no such thing as a salesperson who's a 10 all the way around in every one of these success factors. It's just virtually impossible. It's not a matter of being perfect. It's a matter of just constantly growing and improving ourselves. As I say to my kids, always be happy, but don't be satisfied. Be happy with where you are, but don't be satisfied that you've arrived. You could always do better on your attitude, do better on your behavior, and better on your technique. And so it's a constant raising of the bar. We need to raise our own expectations, internally. I mean, it starts with us as the sales producers. It starts with us to raise our game, to raise the bar, and to, we live up to what we expect of ourselves. If we don't expect much, that's what we'll get. And that's very, very key, important. And I would, and as far as the, let's say the batting averages of the handful of folks that sent theirs in thus far, the leading batting average is a 494, which if you're in Major League Baseball and you're batting a 494, wow. You've got probably, not probably, you've got tens of millions of dollars in your contract. But this is not Major League Baseball. This is Major League steel sales. And it's always, always, always trying to improve ourselves. Not that we've ever arrived or that we can't get better. And these are the three areas in behavior, attitude, and technique. And as I said before, technique is what's coming out of your mouth. The attitude is what you think, behavior is what you do, and technique is what you say. So it's the think, do, say triangle. What you think is your attitude, your beliefs. What you do is your behavior, your goals, your plans, your activities, and your technique is your personal presence, your strategy, and how you're approaching accounts. And there's nobody that closes every bit of business for the margins that they want to get out of them. So there's no doubt in my mind that there's always, always going to be room for improvement. Push yourselves. Don't settle for mediocrity. Push yourself. And also for anyone who has not submitted their success, their batting average, and apparently it doesn't take more than probably 5 minutes to do it. I know Bob Stearns, no sooner did I send it out a couple of weeks ago that Bob had filled his out, sent it back. So it was like, holy cow, it was pre-filled out before I even sent it to him. So take 5 minutes and fill that baby out, send it off to me, and we'll have a good look at what particular area you believe you need some additional help and or resources in. Now, if there's any questions on that, either you didn't get the form to fill out send me a chat or send me an email. I'll make sure I fire that off to you. That's it on the kind of on the piece on. I know. Well, there's not. There we go. Bonding and report. The objective there is, as I said before, the objective is to develop an environment of trust, comfort, credibility, connection, and equal business stature. That's what we want to do, the equal business stature, so that we are not in that kind of adaptive child role where we get treated less than the people that we're dealing with. When I say less than, too many times those of us in sales are kind of bringing a subservient mindset into it. We're equal business stature, right? They're like adult to adult, not parent to child. And so that needs to be established in that bonding and rapport phase. The Sandler Light, the simple, easy piece here, it's the comfort and connection. To develop good comfort and connection. And the tool, the Sandler tool that I want you to be able to utilize is that technique or tactic called being disarmingly honest, or disarming honesty. That is a great rapport building Sandler practice, being disarmingly honest. And when somebody, an example of disarming honesty. So Don Bannister says to me, "Hey Jim, what makes you guys any better than anybody else?" And this is how I would respond to that. And I would say, "Don, it's a great question. At this stage of the game, I don't know that we are, any better than anybody else that you're currently dealing with." I don't know that. And now what that hopefully shows to Don is that, wow, this guy is not somebody who's going to jump in and start to, as Mike had said earlier, that dumping spilling the candy in the lobby. I'm not going to kind of fall victim to that adaptive child state and then want to prove how wonderful and how great I am. Being disarmingly honest is a wonderful tool to use for your bonding and rapport throughout. Always be honest to a disarming degree. And I think that is key. That is a key, let's say, tactic, if you want to call it a tactic, but it's a key ingredient to having the trust, comfort, and credibility with people, is a high dose of disarming honesty. You're going to be honest, and people appreciate that. They do appreciate that. They don't appreciate the, just made up nonsense that they know you would say because you're a salesperson and you're paid to say that stuff. So that's when I have the Sandler Light, just comfort and connection, but the real tool to this is disarming honesty. The pain step. The objective of that pain step is to discover the personal, compelling, and emotional reasons why people, will do business with you. I mean, that's what it's all about. And it's got to be personally attached. You have to understand what and how is the person I'm dealing with. How are they affected by this problem that we're talking about? And that's very, very key to understand, is what is the personal impact, not just the corporate impact, but the personal impact. And the Sandler Light is make sure that you get pain indicators. At the least, understand that there are some symptoms, and that's another way I would look at pain indicators. What are the pain symptoms that they're experiencing? Got to make sure you do that. That would be the light version. And the Sandler tool that you would use to do that is this painometer. And this painometer really is this visual image of how you go take somebody through the pain compartment. What are the indicators? It starts very intellectual at the left as you're going through this painometer. You want to get some symptoms, get some specific real life recent examples of it taking place, how that impacts their business, how it impacts them personally. That's where the emotion starts to really be driven there, is how, when you ask somebody, how are you impacted by this? You know, Charlie, how does this impact you? If Charlie's not impacted by it and he says, well, it doesn't bother me, it doesn't impact me one iota, I want to find out who it does impact, because I want to know who's the person who's the most emotionally attached to the problem that we're talking about. Then we're going to find out how committed to taking action are they. That's very, very important, because every one of us are committed to fixing a problem as long as the customer or prospective customer is committed to getting this pain fixed. There has to be that, and there again, that's that equal business stature, is we can't be more committed to fixing somebody's pain than they are in their commitment to getting it fixed. And then the vision, you know, what's their vision of the ideal solution? Those 6 stages inside the pain step will be very, very beneficial for you to kind of burn into your memory bank, and or have that thing kind of printed out and in front of you when you're on a sales call to ask those types of questions. Very important. The budget step. Now, the objective there is to discover, is the prospect both, and it is both, willing and able to make any and all investments to move forward. And there again, I know in your world, you know, asking, is there a budget available, is the kind of the short, quick question that needs to be asked that many people are not comfortable asking. And the reason that people do not ask about that is their inherent fear, or culturally, you know, we're all afraid to talk about money. It's a taboo subject to bring up, and it's something that most people are very, very hesitant to bring up. So, you know, be gutsy for 5 seconds at a time. And then when you've got more guts, you take them into the investment triangle, which Sandler has. The investment triangle has financial aspects to it, the access to stakeholders, and time. Those are the 3 main investment areas that we cover. Unfortunately, most people in the budget step only focus on the financial aspect. Access to stakeholders. Are they invested enough to give us access to some of those other key individuals who are also holding and controlling the purse strings? And are they willing to invest the time necessary to work with New Millennium and to start this project off right? Very, very important that you understand and utilize the investment triangle, and not just be kind of the one-trick pony and only talking about money. The decision process, gain complete and accurate understanding of the buyer's, you know, of their decision, DMP, their decision-making process, and gain access to all key decision makers. That's very, very, very important, that we can gain access to any and all other stakeholders, other key decision makers. You know, the light version of Sandler, you know, will you be making the decision, and when will you be making? So it's, you know, it's focusing on the person you're dealing with and when they're going to be making a decision. That, at the very least, is what you should be finding out. But, you know, kind of the amped up version is the Sandler decision wheel, which is what I've got right up here now. And these are all questions that need to be addressed in the decision step, which is when a decision will be rendered. Why? What's driving that timeline? So when a decision will be rendered, why that timeline, what decision will be made, who else other than yourself is going to be involved in the decision-making process. That's one where very, very frequently we fail to find out who are some of the other influencers, you know, the white knights and or the black knights that might, you know, that might derail the deal. How a decision will be made, and why not? The question, why not? What's gonna keep this thing from being decided upon? So what are all the showstoppers? What are the hurdles that we might face? But those 6 question types are the types that should be incorporated into our decision process. And that's why I said earlier that this is one that gets frequently overlooked, but you overlook it at your own peril. You got to make sure that those questions are always, always, always asked. The fulfillment step, which is the time that we present the new millennium proposal, the objective is to present that proposal to the buyer's pain and get a yes or no decision. That's the objective there, to be able to prove that we can take the pain away from them and do it rightly, do it the way they need to. The standard light version is you're presenting to the pain that you found, and you're presenting to that and to that alone. The standard tool is the ultimate upfront contract, which is an agreement in advance before you present. That's having an agreement with them prior to the presentation, which is the ultimate upfront contract, the agreement that at the end a yes or no will be rendered. And then when you go through each one of the pain points in your presentation, you close on each pain point to make sure that, do you have any questions? Are you 100% satisfied with that? Should I move on to the next point? And then you need to kind of mark those off, because if there's any questions or any concerns or anybody challenging you on any piece of your proposal, then you want to find it out right then and there while you're still with them. Your thermometer close is simply, asking them, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 meaning I'm so far off base here, there's no way in the world we're ever going to even be considered. A 10 means you're ready to get this order signed and get us to start production. And, where are you on that? So that's the Sandler tool: upfront contract in advance, closing on each step as you go through the presentation, and then gauging them with the thermometer closed. The post-sell, a verbal rehearsal to prevent backouts and setting the ground rules for a mutually profitable long-term relationship. And as we said before, the post-sell is the upfront contract at the end, just like it's set in the beginning, so it's bookending, and it's rehearsing with the potential backouts. And we all know that people can back out or have second thoughts, or the incumbent gets last look. And post-selling it is having that verbal conversation to make sure that if there's any cracks, that we find out about it while we still have the opportunity to interact with them face-to-face or over the telephone. And then also setting the ground rules for how the project and relationship is going to be serviced, supported, and then grown as more and future projects come available. The light version, are you comfortable moving forward? You don't see anything changing, do you? Things will always change. I want to find out if things are going to change. I want to find out sooner rather than later. And then the standard tool, restate what a yes means. A yes means, we select delivery date, we get this into our production schedule. A yes means, we pick up the deposit, or however you're working the paperwork and the financing of the project. But you've got to, this is the strong version, is very, very clearly defining what a yes means in moving forward. What new millennium, or what you are going to do on your end. Rehearsing buyer's remorse, very, very important that we do that. And now I've had people say to me, why would you ever rehearse buyer's remorse? Why would you even give them the thought that they could back out? And I said, and I always say is, look, me saying that does not cause them to want to back out. They know, and I know, that they could back out at any point. And that being the case, I want to rehearse and coach them when they start to have second thoughts, how they're going how they're going to kind of think it through and convince themselves that they need to work with New Millennium. And then tell them what they're not allowed to do, which is to give the incumbent, give the other guys last look, not to send an email saying, hey, on second thought, we've decided not to proceed with this particular project or not to proceed with New Millennium or whatever. I just need to tell them, you need to tell them, what they cannot do if they want this project done, completed on time, on budget, within the quality scope that they want it delivered on. So each one of these compartments has both kind of the light version, which is just kind of that drive-by skim coding, and it's got the more intensive version where you're doing a deeper dive into every one of them. The deeper dive is using this Sandler tools to strengthen each one of those compartments so you can seal it off. And if you don't, and if you just do a light drive-by version of it, you're potentially going to set yourself up for, a hit in your submarine, a torpedo in it. So I am going to say I'm going to just about wrap this thing up. I think, yep. Send the lessons learned. I'm going to send everybody a copy of this recording today. So if you wanted to review it prior to doing your lessons learned, or if you jotted some notes down, or what you may have picked out of this, I'm going to send the lesson learned link. I'm going to send the recorded version of today's session. I'm going to send it over to you. If anybody has any comments, questions, please, I'm going to stay on the line here, allow you to chat it to me or drop me an email. But everybody have a very, very good, safe weekend. Be careful out there, whatever you do. If you're going biking, wear a helmet. That's even you bicyclers. So have a fun, safe, sound weekend, and send me your batting averages if you haven't sent them yet. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care. And I'll stay attached. So if anybody has chats